Hello and welcome back. I've been following the fascinating discussion that you all have been having about this last chapter of Hilton and the short article about the Native American roller derby skaters. And one of the big things that stuck out to me that it seemed to also with a number of you all is how newscasters and the media in general make this distinction between athletes of color and white athletes, with the athletes of color being talked about more in terms of their natural ability, and the white athletes being talked about more in terms of their hard work ethic. So I think this is really interesting to pick up on, and some of you have even given me examples of how you see this played out in other sports. So I think this is a fascinating analysis that Hilton has given us. There are a few other things that I wanted to point out as interesting. There was a big discussion about what's called the race card, and some people playing the race card to gain favoritism or whatever when it wasn't appropriate. And I think, sure, there are some instances of this, but I think sometimes, not you guys, but sometimes I hear other people use the term race card when they don't really want to look at the details of how races played out. So while I agree that that can be sometimes a problematic thing, I think that it might get that term gets used a little too often. I think it's a funny term to me because I am Native American. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation, so I do have a card. So in the instance that I pulled my card out of my wallet and say I'm Cherokee, so you should give me the last cookie on the plate or something. That's of course a silly example, but I would say that's a clear literal use of the race card. But where racism can be problematic, especially in those places you all pointed out where newscasters kind of, even not consciously but kind of subconsciously, deny athletes of color the hard work they had to do to put into becoming an athlete, and especially some of you mentioned the Olympics. To get to that level, there's no one with the natural ability to get to the level of the Olympics. And even if there were people with natural abilities, that you couldn't break it up by race. They're not consciously doing that, but they are denying it. And so if someone was to question that, you couldn't say that they were playing the race card because they were questioning the kind of reasoning behind it. So where I do agree with you about the race card, I think that I would be careful that you're not using that phrase unless you have all the details, because every instance is very particular, and we need to look at all of the complexity before we can be dismissive. So great discussions. Even I did notice someone brought in the question of gender being a problem with the media perpetuating gender stereotypes in the Olympics too. So another great line of questioning. So we are nearing the end of the course. I have read all of your questions for Reek and Rage, and great questions. What I will end up doing is picking one question from each of you and then asking them to her on Friday morning, and then I will upload that video to YouTube. That will be the end of the course, so there won't be an assignment for you to do on that video, but I hope that with the great questions you guys have developed together, you'll be invested in watching the interview anyway, and maybe her particular experience might make some of this more abstract stuff that we've been studying about race and roller derby a little bit more concrete. So for Thursday, we're going to read the last bit of the Hilton book, and it will be the last Dropbox assignment, if I'm not mistaken, for the course. And we're going to read the chapter named Anti-Racism in Sport by Kevin Hilton. And I want you, like always, to respond in a thoughtful, careful manner, at least a half a page. The question I want you to answer about that chapter is, why is Hilton critical of anti-racism? Anti-racism sounds like a good thing. It's a against racism. So, why isn't it good? He's critical of anti-racism for a number of reasons. I want you to pick out the clearest reason to you and explain that to me in your response. Also in your response, I want you to include at least one quote from the chapter as evidence to back up your point. All right, you guys have done great work this semester. We're nearing the end. Great questions for Reek and Rage, and I will be doing that interview on Friday. I'll compile the list tonight and send them to her. This is my usual practice on interviews. I compile a list and I'll send them to the interviewee just to let them know what to expect. And if they're uncomfortable with any particular questions, then they can opt out at that point. But keep the energy going. We're almost through. And let me know if you have any questions or concerns. I will see you all next time.